Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtadhara Satashi Srimati Divine Grace of Janardana Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nithai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, Chapter 32, Entanglement and Fruit of Activities, text number 6. Nivritti dharma nirata Nirvitti dharma nirata Nirmama nirahankrita Nirmama nirahankrita Swadharmaptena sattvena Swadharmaptena sattvena Parishuddhena cetasa Parishuddhena cetasa Nivritti dharma nirata Nirmama nirahankritaha Swadharmaptena sattvena Parishuddhena cetasa Nivritti dharma nirata Nirmama nirahankritaha Swadharmaptena sattvena Parishuddhena cetasa Nivritti dharma nirata Nirmama nirahankritaha Swadharmaptena sattvena Parishuddhena cetasaha Nirvitta dharma nirata Nirmama nirahankritaha Sattena Parishuddhena cetasa Nivritti dharma nirata Nirmama nirahankrita Swadharmaptena sattvena Parishuddhena cetasaha. Mataji's. Nirvitti dharma nirata Nirmama nirahankrita Swadharmaptena sattvena Parishuddhena cetasa. Word for word translation. Nivritti dharma, in religious activities for detachment. Nirataha, constantly engaged. Nirmamaha, without a sense of proprietorship. Nirahankritaha, without false egoism. Swadharma, by one's own occupational duties. Aptena, executed. Sattvena, by goodness. Parishuddhena, completely purified. Cetasa, by consciousness. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Janardana Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: by executing one's occupational duties, acting with detachment and without a sense of proprietorship or false egoism, one is posted in one's constitutional position by dint of complete purification of consciousness, and by thus executing so-called material duties, he can easily enter into the kingdom of God. Please repeat after me. By executing one's occupational duties, acting with detachment, and without a sense of proprietorship or false egoism, one is posted in one's constitutional position by dint of complete purification of consciousness, and by thus executing so-called material duties, he can easily enter into the kingdom of God. Purport: here the word nivritti dharma niratha means constantly engaging in executing religious activities for detachment. There are two kinds of religious performances. One is called pravritti dharma, which means the religious activities performed by the Grihamedis for elevation to higher planets or for economic prosperity, the final aim for which is sense gratification. Every one of us who has come to this material world has a sense of overlordship. This is called pravritti. But the opposite type of religious performance, which is called nivritti, is to act for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Engaged in devotional service to Krishna consciousness, one has no proprietorship claim, nor is one situated in the false egoism of thinking that he is God or the Master. He always thinks himself the servant. That is the process of purifying consciousness. With pure consciousness only can one enter into the kingdom of God. Materialistic persons in their elevated condition can enter any one of the planets within this material world, but all are subjected to dissolution over and over again. Translation again. By executing one's occupational duties, acting with detachment and without a sense of proprietorship or false egoism, one is posted in one's constitutional position by dint of complete purification of consciousness, and by thus executing so-called material duties, he can easily enter into the kingdom of God. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Mukham karati vasalam sanghamagayati girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurun Tirtharanam Paramanandamatavam Shri Chaitanyeshwari. Om Vishnu Hare Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Devamrita Swami Tanami Vishali Purudaksham Samatayagya. Namo Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Devi Gauravani Prasarane Nirvisheshi Sunyavadi Paschatale Sarane. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for attending this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are continuing to hear about the entanglement of the living entity in fruitive activities. Wonderful topic for a Friday morning. It's a total opposite to what we try to enthuse ourselves to do in materialistic life, because these are the things we don't like to think about. Often when you come across preaching or cultivating devotees, the common thought process that they generally have is that, why is there so much pessimism about materialistic life? If you were just a little bit, laid off a bit about how difficult material life was, and Krishna says anityam asukam lokam, that it's impermanent, there's no happiness, it's full of distress, it's temporary. If you just let go of these things, so many people will be able to take, Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada says that Krishna consciousness and sense gratification go ill together. It's a very important point to remember, because whenever we experience difficulties in spiritual life and we feel like, the last straw, we're at our limit's end, we can understand that somehow or other we have mixed motivated, impure desire in our devotional service. Because if one is pure and is going through devotional difficulties, then one understands and takes shelter of Krishna, that this difficulty is meant to make me come closer to Krishna rather than take me away. Whereas within our impure materialistic consciousness, when difficulties come, when an obstacle comes, what do we think? It's too difficult. Material life seems to be so much more easier. We go and blame Krishna. All I did was come and chant Hare Krishna, and now you're giving me all these difficulties. In fact, I came to chant Hare Krishna to escape material difficulties. You gave me some relief, and now again, what is this? You have cheated me. Tamal Krishna Maharaj says that Prabhupada actually follows in the footsteps of Krishna. That he told his disciples that Krishna consciousness is so easy. You just simply come, chant, dance, and feast. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj says that later on we ended up doing so many managerial things as well. And we ended up taking up the responsibility of preaching and pushing this Krishna consciousness movement. So we need to understand that unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service, yatma suprasidati, that's what will give us satisfaction, deep satisfaction within the core of our heart. And here we're understanding the step-by-step process a person takes to get to that platform. Of course, the Vedic process of bringing one to the platform of devotional service is very slow, or rather it's very gradual. The speed in which one takes to devotional service is really up to the practitioner. To the degree they desire, to that degree they make progress. Because ye yatamam prapadyante. Krishna reciprocates according to one's attempts to reciprocate with him. So here we are seeing slowly how one goes from a completely entangled materialistic life towards a more purified existence. And Prabhupada explains here two types of dharma, pravritti dharma and nivritti dharma. And both are completely beyond our understanding, or to speak of spiritual life. Because in this day and age of Kali Yuga, which is full of uncivilized behavior, sense gratification is simply pulling down living entities into the deepest, darkest regions of hell. Rather, the whole point of pravritti dharma, occupational duties performed towards dharma, artha, kama, and eventually moksha, is liberating. Rather, unfortunately, to hell with dharma, to hell with karma, to hell with everything. All we want is kama. We don't want to do any work, karma. We don't want to do any dharma. We don't want artha. We don't want to do any type of economic development, although we are forced to. Right? That's the whole principle of credit cards. You enjoy now and suffer later. Whereas the whole point is that you work hard, get money, and then use that to enjoy. So everyone wants to escape this economic development. And moksha is something you'll figure out when you die. Because you only live once anyway. So this principle is rampant in material existence. Whereas the spiritual process is that one slowly realizes that actually that is not the way one should live. That one should live according to one's dharma, swadharma. Prabhupada explains there are two types of swadharma. One is one's material occupation and the other one's spiritual occupation. Varnashrama dharma. So when one performs their activities or occupational duties according to their qualifications, of course Krishna doesn't say birth, right? He says according to one's activities and qualification. So then when one performs such activities with the due qualifications, one gradually purifies one's consciousness. And one is able to understand slowly that I am not this body, I am the soul. and that the proprietor of everything is Krishna. Isavasyamidam sarvam. So this process of pravritti dharma, it's completely mixed with karma kanda activities, because as Prabhupada explains that it is the religious activities performed by the griha maidis. This word maidi, it comes from the principle, or rather the example of in the villages how they engage the bull in performing activities other than agriculture work, in tilling the land. The bull is also used for crushing, right? So what they will do is that they will stick a pole in the middle, tie the bull with a rope, and make the bull just walk round and round, right? That pole is called Medi. Medi comes from that. I was listening to Jay Gautam Maharaj, he was explaining this. And he was saying this Griha Medi is one who's simply attached to household life. Just as the bull doesn't know anywhere to go except for that pole. He simply goes round and round and round. And Prabhupada goes a bit heavier than that. Prabhupada actually explains that Griha Medi means one whose life is simply absorbed in sense gratification. That's the core principle of one's existence, although one may be married. So the activities performed by the Griha Medis for elevation to higher planets or for economic prosperity is known as pravritti dharma. Because the whole goal is what? Sense gratification. Therefore Griha Medi life is condemned. It is condemned in Srimad Bhagavatam because one cannot be a Griha Medi and still be a devotee. Because what is the principle? The sense of overlordship. Prabhupada says every one of us who has come to this material world has a sense of overlordship, which is aham mameti. I am this body and everything in relation to this body is mine. Yesterday Radhavendra Prabhu was talking about fruitive activities and how we should be detached from fruitive activities. But let me ask you this. Every activity produces a fruit. So how can you not be attached to the result? Does anyone have an answer? Every activity has fruit, so you should be detached from the fruit, right? Detachment from fruitive activity means you should be detached from the fruit. So how can you perform work without thinking of the result? Yes, Prabhu. As a matter of duty, but still, the results should come from the work. Every work you perform, a result is there, a fruit. You plant a seed, you will get fruit. But you should be detached from the fruit. So the natural understanding is that you should not be, concerned about the fruit at all. Right? Do your duty. But don't worry about the fruit. That's not completely full. To do just your duty will sometimes end up in frustration. Because why? Why do you do your duty? To please Krishna. Okay, so then if you do your duty to please Krishna, what are you going to do with the result that comes from your duty? You offer it to Krishna. So whenever we come up with this understanding of detachment from something, immediately understand that what this detachment means, it's not for my sense gratification, it's for Krishna's sense gratification. So every activity will produce a fruit. Does that mean you offer everything to Krishna? Yeah? Does that mean you offer everything to Krishna? So say for example, today I feel like going to the movies, so I'll offer that to Krishna. Today I desire to eat such and such items without offering it to Krishna. But I'll eat it and then offer it mentally to Krishna. To do it for the pleasure of Krishna means to do it how Krishna wants it. If you do something the way Krishna wants it, it means you're surrendering unto Krishna. Surrendering unto Krishna. So when you surrender unto Krishna, then that means that there's no more fruitive activities and there's no sense of overlordship. Because what is the core principle of this overlordship? Everything is, I am this body and everything I survey belongs to me. Overlordship. Aham mameti. Everything is mine. This is the false ego. Okay. But if you sacrifice that and take shelter of Krishna and accept your dharma as Nitya Krishna Das, and when you perform your activities for Krishna's pleasure, you're surrendering unto Krishna. You're doing it as Krishna says. Like I was reading Prabhupada's early days, from the time where he started the New York Center to the time where he goes to India because he wanted to get treated after getting the heart attack. And I've been reading that section a lot since COVID, and I find that section very, very inspiring in terms of preaching, in terms of developing that preaching mood. And especially because I read Lilamrit once in a while. Otherwise, I read the Hare Krishna Explosion by Hayagriva Prabhu. And I like that book so much because it's a very straightforward book of a bhakta. You know, if you go through spiritual life as a devotee, when you practice Krishna consciousness in your early life, imagine writing down all your thoughts as you practice devotional service. Like, for example, coming to the temple, what are these weird guys doing, chanting Hare Krishna? You know, they're wearing robes and chanting. All these small things, you know, and you look back at it and you laugh and like think, you know, what was I thinking? Like that, when you read Hare Krishna Explosion, it's very, very, in one sense, a comedy. It's very comedic when you think of how they perceive Prabhupada, you know. Like, for example, Prabhupada, in one section of the book, he explains, you know, when you have the deities, he's explaining the deities, we worship the deities. We keep them in a nice place and decorate them. Not like how you guys worship your superiors. You make a statue and put it on your lawn and let the bird droppings fall on them. That's not how you worship your superiors. So then later on, Prabhupada, he unfortunately had to go through his heart attack in New York. And so then he came to San Francisco. And they had arranged a place in Stinson Beach. And there Prabhupada, as he comes to the beach, then he sees a head of Buddha full of bird droppings and he just shakes his head. And he goes inside. And then Hayagriva Prabhu says there that Prabhupada shook his head as if to tell us that we'll never learn. That we'll never learn. They knew it. They knew there was the statue there, but they didn't do anything about it. Anyway, so the point there in the beginning days, you have this nice exchange between Prabhupada and his devotees. And so there, Prabhupada is explaining to his devotees that this sense of proprietorship, that should be given up, that one should surrender unto Krishna. And therefore you see throughout that whole section, because Hayagriva Prabhu was the editor for the Bhagavad Gita. Hayagriva Prabhu himself got the transcriptions from Prabhupada and he edited them for two things, force and clarity. Prabhupada mentions again and again, edit for force and clarity. And this was Hayagriva Prabhu's service, such a foundational service that when you open up Bhagavad Gita, we should be grateful to Hayagriva Prabhu because he's the one who laid the foundations for us to be able to get it. Because by his editing, that transcripted version was then sent to Macmillan Publishing. And they then printed an abridged version, which means they reduced it by a lot because they wanted to produce it in an economic fashion, printed in an economic fashion. But whatever was there was something that Hayagriva Prabhu had put his hand in. Of course, Prabhupada guided him along the way, but Hayagriva Prabhu had done most of the heavy lifting in terms of the editing by Prabhupada's mercy. So he's explaining throughout that book, you'll see Prabhupada again and again saying that I am writing this book, you edit it with force and clarity. But unfortunately, Hayagriva would always go back to Prabhupada again and again and again. Because Prabhupada's writing wasn't very well accustomed to how Prabhupada was writing. He wasn't very well accustomed to Vedic knowledge. So pronoun, noun, how it fits, all of these things was a bit confusing for him. So he'd always consult Prabhupada. And he would say that the whole day would go in so much consultation with Prabhupada just simply for the translation. What does speak of purport? Simply for translation. At one point Prabhupada says, forget it. Just take any translation. They all follow the Sanskrit and just focus on my purports. My purports are the main thing. Because everyone is saying, not unto Krishna, but I am saying in every single purport, unto Krishna. Surrender unto Krishna. So this is the point I wanted to make. That Prabhupada is emphasizing that point, surrender unto Krishna. Which means we should sacrifice everything for Krishna's pleasure. Krishna, Sukha, Hetu. This is the modus operandi. This is the core functioning principle in which the gopis executed their lives. Krishna Sukha Hetu. Everything should cause Krishna's pleasure. In other words, for Krishna's pleasure only. I was recently reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and for me, Chaitanya Charitamrita sometimes is extremely bewildering because it talks about pure devotional service and it's just completely beyond my understanding. For example, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will go into ecstasy, and when you hear about whatever Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is tasting, you'll just be completely shocked, stunned. No words, just amazed. You'll relish, but you won't be able to process. At least I won't, because I'm on the neophyte platform. So I was reading recently that during the Ratha Yatra festival, Mahaprabhu was dancing in front of Lord Jagannath. And Lord Jagannath was stopping the cart to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went back, Jagannath would stop. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go forward, Jagannath would go forward. And in this way they were having their reciprocation. They were having their constant battle between themselves. And at one point, Mahaprabhu went into such great ecstasy that he started expressing the pure devotional service, or the pure moods or mellows of Srimati Radharani. And there he explains how the whole Rath Yatra festival is bringing Lord Jagannath from the Sri Mandir to Sundarachala, which is not non-different from Vrindavan. So the Sri Mandir in Jagannath Puri is known as Lakshmi Devi's temple, or in other words, Dwarka. And bringing Lord Krishna to Vrindavan, Sundarachal, where the Gundicha temple is. So the whole procession is pretty much mimicking how Srimati Radharani wanted to pull Krishna from Kurukshetra to Vrindavan to serve him. So I won't say anything more because I can't explain. It's such an elevated topic. But the point I wanted to make was that if you read that, at least one drop of mercy of the spiritual master, at least one thing you can understand is that the gopis, they simply thought of Krishna's pleasure. They didn't want to go to Vrindavan simply because, it's easier in Vrindavan to serve you, Krishna. Just come to Vrindavan. We know where this is. We know where that is. We can arrange everything. Kurukshetra, we don't know anything. It's nothing like that. They know that they can serve Krishna unrestrictedly, and Krishna will reciprocate unrestrictedly in Vrindavan. Whereas in Dwarka, in front of his parents, in front of his relatives, in front of his wives, in front of his children, he's obliged to act in a certain way. So, Srimati Radharani knew how to worship and serve Krishna to the best of her abilities to give him complete pleasure. Which is why Lord Jagannath actually tells her that I'm coming to bring, because she complains to Jagannath. If you read that section in the Kurukshetra, in the section of Krishna book at least, where Krishna goes with the Yadus to Kurukshetra to perform the yagya there he meets the residents of Vrindavan. And there he starts preaching to them suddenly about dhyana yoga and mystic yoga. You meditate on me, you worship me through meditation and everything like this. And you won't read much about there. You'll just see the gopis won't be very pleased with that. But Mahaprabhu explains further, by the mercy of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he explains further that the gopis weren't pleased because Prabhupada writes in the Prabhupada, the gopis weren't interested in meditating on Krishna. They are simply interested in taking Krishna's feet and worshipping Krishna's lotus feet. They weren't interested in just meditating on Krishna. They were interested in taking his lotus feet. To the extent that they kept them on their breasts, and they considered their breasts too hard that they were worried about Krishna's pleasure, whether his feet would feel any discomfort. And when they were meditating on Krishna's feet while he went, how to serve Krishna's lotus feet, they were thinking, if he walks in Vrindavan, there will be sharp objects. And just thinking about that gave them great pain. Right? They were just simply thinking about meditating on the lotus feet of Krishna for the sake of liberation. Whatever they did was for Krishna's pleasure. Therefore, Krishna Sukha Hetu. They were always surrendered to Krishna, and therefore they're the topmost devotees of Lord Krishna. And of them all, the topmost is Srimati Radharani. So therefore, when we read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can understand that Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So that Jagannath was chasing after Mahaprabhu wasn't that he was chasing after Mahaprabhu, in the sense that Mahaprabhu was the Purusha. Jagannath was chasing after the mood of Srimati Radharani that he himself was displaying as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So you can understand this is the topmost level of pure devotional service. Now let's take a different level here. After that, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Palagandi, it's mentioned on one side was the residence of the Brahmanas of Puri, and the other side was this wonderful garden, forest that reminded of Sri Jagannath of Vrindavan Dham. And it's there that an amazing pastime is performed. And there's a precursor to this amazing pastime. That it's mentioned that Jagannath sits in his cart in that place, along with his elder brother Balaram and younger sister Subhadra Devi. And Subhadra Maharani, Lord Balaram and Lord Jagannath, they accept offerings from every single person. In Jagannath Puri, in the temple, only the pujaris are allowed to offer. That too, it's mentioned that they cook in new pots and they serve Jagannath in those pots, and then they never use those pots again. And in fact, it's mentioned that the head pujari, when he comes to offer the bhoga, he looks, and it's mentioned that when he looks in the Achman Patra, if he sees the face of Lord Jagannath, then he knows Jagannath's accepted. If he doesn't see it, what they do is immediately discard all of those bhoga offerings, cook fresh, and serve Jagannath then and there. Because there may be some discrepancy in the offering. So in the temple, Lord Jagannath is very strict, and the pujaris are very strict. But in Balagandi, whether one is Shudra, Vaishya, whatever caste they may be, Chandala, they were able to offer bhoga to Krishna, Lord Jagannath. And it's mentioned there were so many offerings that in this place, it was just innumerable that Mahaprabhu had to stop chanting, and he went to the forest and he found a nice platform and paid and just laid there in ecstasy. And it is at this place that King Prataparudra got the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if you read this section of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will feel, when we have this desire to understand about mundane romantic affairs, how the male and the female, they go through so many obstacles, and then suddenly they want to come together and meet, and so many things bring them apart, this social custom and that etiquette, and then finally they meet together and everything. That desire to understand or to relish that type of perverted romantic desire, that is perfected by seeing how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestows his mercy on Prataparudra Maharaj. Because Prataparudra Maharaj, he's a king, a Vishayi externally, one who is absorbed in pounds and shillings. In other words, Prabhupada says, he's a pounds and shillings man. That means he's a materialist. But he wasn't. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu constantly taught, if you read, there's this constant desire of Prataparudra Maharaj to meet Mahaprabhu, and this constant desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach these devotees how to observe the etiquette of the sannyasa ashram. That one should not go and see a Vishayi, one who's attached to material opulence and a sense gratification. And if you read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in this particular section, you'll constantly see how Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he is churning, he's constantly bringing out that how there's this desire and it's not being fulfilled by Prataparudra Maharaj. And it finally comes to a conclusion in this section where Mahaprabhu meets Prataparudra Maharaj in this forest. In the beginning, you see Prataparudra Maharaj, he doesn't know about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then he hears about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then he desires to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes to South India. Then he says to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that you please arrange a meeting as soon as this great personality comes back to Puri. And when Mahaprabhu comes back to Puri and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya goes to meet Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu tells him that it's not possible. In fact, he tells Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that what are you trying to do, trying to break my sannyasa ashram? If you keep speaking like this, I will leave. I will leave Puri. I'll go and stay in Alalanath. I won't come back. And out of fear, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya never pursues. And the king is morose. But during that time, he gets to see Mahaprabhu in so many different instances. One time, just before the Ratha Yatra, during the Anavasara Kala, That's when all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the Vaishnavas from Navadvip Dham, they come to visit Mahaprabhu. And when they come, Pratapa Rudra Maharaj, he's sitting on the top of his palace in Puri. And he's seeing all these Vaishnavas coming to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's amazed. If you see it from that perspective, when you read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, then, because we'll understand, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we're all, chanting and dancing, hands up in the air, just going wild, trying to chant and dance as much as we can for Mahaprabhu's pleasure, for Radha Gopinath's pleasure. But this is a new type of kirtan. It's mentioned that it's something Mahaprabhu brought personally from Golok Vrindavan to implant in this mature world. And Prataparudra Maharaj becomes completely astonished seeing that. And then he asks, who are the devotees? What are they doing? And then you'll start hearing from Gopinath Acharya that this devotee is this, that devotee is that, Mahaprabhu is doing this, Mahaprabhu is doing that. And Prataparudra Maharaj's desire is becoming more and more and more enticed, or it's becoming more and more inflamed. It's becoming an inferno that he just can't live thinking that he may not be able to see Mahaprabhu. So then he goes and petitions again. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then takes Nityananda Prabhu, Mukunda, Damodara, and he takes them all to Mahaprabhu. And they think, we'll go to Mahaprabhu and we'll tell Mahaprabhu that you please give your mercy to Prataparudra Maharaj. But when they go to Mahaprabhu and they see Mahaprabhu, they become speechless. It sometimes happens to us, right? We'll go to our spiritual master, I'll say this, I'll question this, and I have problems like this, and then I'll get it solved and I'll ask him. And when you sit down and you look, then you realize, actually, all these problems are so insignificant. What did I want to say? I forgot. Like that, they come in from Mahaprabhu, but they come out of fear. What is their fear? That Mahaprabhu will not like what they have to say, and that he may leave. Anyway, fast forwarding, basically they petition Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu says, no can do, not possible. And then they said, please, something. So then he said, we'll bring the king's son. And when they bring the king's son dressed as Krishna himself, he's dark, this king's son is darkish in complexion, and he looks like Sri Krishna himself being dressed up in such a form. Mahaprabhu goes into ecstasy and embraces the son of the king. And he says, from now on, you are my intimate, confidential associate. Every day you should come here and associate with me. And then the king, hearing this, simultaneously feels great happiness. He embraces his son and feels like he's embracing the son. And just prior to that, Nityananda Prabhu arranges that he gets the external cloth of Mahaprabhu and sends it to the king. And when he sees the cloth of Mahaprabhu, he worships it as if it's Mahaprabhu right there directly. Because Tadiya Nam Samarchanam is non-different from the Lord, being in relationship to the Lord. So then after that the son comes, but then the king is not fully satisfied. He hasn't really got Mahaprabhu's mercy completely in the sense physical association. So then Rath Yatra comes along, and Prataparudra Maharaj comes before the cart and with a golden rod starts sweeping. And Mahaprabhu, seeing this, that the king is such a high position, but he's doing such menial service for Lord Jagannath, it invokes his compassion. He wants to give the mercy to the king. There's a pastime actually, if you read Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj's books on Lord Jagannath. There it's mentioned specifically that one particular point in time, the king of Puri was supposed to marry a South Indian king further down south. Marry the daughter of the South Indian king, not the king, the princess. And so what had happened was that the king of Puri had invited his to-be father-in-law and family to see the Rath Yatra festival. But when this South Indian king saw that the king was sweeping in front of Lord Jagannath, then he was disgusted actually, because the idea of Kshatriya is that they don't do such menial work, So he thought on that material platform, and he immediately cancelled the engagement with his daughter, saying that I don't want my daughter to marry just a simple street sweeper, such a low person. And when the king of Puri heard that, he was enraged. Was he enraged for himself? No. He was enraged that that king was taking Jagannath lightly, taking Jagannath's service very lightly. Because the king of Puri always understands that actually Lord Jagannath is the king and I am simply his servant. So he goes every day and reports to Lord Jagannath, this and this in your kingdom, this and this in your kingdom, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, please kindly give us your blessings. So when the king heard this, you know what he did? He staged a invasion, a conquering mission of that kingdom south below Puri. And he won against that king. And when he won against the king, he told him, now because you have treated Jagannath like this, I will marry your daughter to a street sweeper. But actually in the background, the king and that princess had already developed affection for one another. They were already mutually engaged, mutually in a relationship. But the king was just sacrificed that. Like, how dare he, offend Lord Jagannath like that? So then what had happened was one of the ministers knew this. So he told the minister, you should arrange that this daughter should be married to a street sweeper. And the minister was very intelligent. He said, yes, my lord, I'll arrange it. So next time Rath Yatra came, the king was sweeping. So then he told, my dear lord, I have found the perfect match for the daughter of that king. It is you. And so the minister arranged the marriage between the princess and the king. But here the point here to understand, of course, Lord Jagannath reciprocating with his devotees. But here to understand was that this is the nature of the king of Puri. This is the nature of the king of Puri. And this is what endeared Mahaprabhu to Prataparudra Maharaj. Anyway, that's the background story. When it came to Prataparudra Maharaj meeting Mahaprabhu, he dressed up as a Vaishnava and approached Mahaprabhu and started massaging his feet and started chanting Gopi Geet. And Mahaprabhu, hearing this, went into great ecstasy and embraced Prataparudra Maharaj. And this is the point I wanted to come, this will be the final point today, that when he embraced Prataparudra Maharaj, he told him that, I don't know how to repay you. I don't know who you are, but you have given me the greatest jewel of this highest ras, of tasting this transcendental mellow of the highest order. And I'm completely indebted to you. I cannot repay you with anything, so I'm simply embracing you. And this is a very important point to understand, because this is the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the mercy. This is why he's known as Mahabhadanyaya Avatar. Because Mahaprabhu has come to give us pure devotional service, but to the most fallen, the most degraded. But he's elevating us to the most transcendental platform simply by seeing Prasada Lesha Anugrihita Evahi. Small fraction. If Krishna Prasada Lesha Anugrihita Evahi Janati Tattvam Bhagavan Mahimno Najanya Kopi Chiram Vichinman. Lord Brahma is praying to Krishna that only one who has a fraction of your mercy is able to understand you. No one else. If this is Krishna, and that same Krishna is asking you to surrender and we're not surrendering, and that same Krishna comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and gives Krishna consciousness so freely, imagine the fraction of that sincere devotional service you just have to show Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What to speak of Pravritti Marg and Nivritti Marg. What to speak of performing devotional service with fruitive activity, with speculative activity. Just a fraction, Prabhupada says in that purport. That is enough for Mahaprabhu to empower you in Krishna consciousness. For you to be elevated directly to the transcendental platform. And this is a very important point we seem to miss and forget as we progress in devotional service if we don't have enough hearing and chanting in our life. We have taken devotional service, we are not qualified. At least speaking for myself. And having taken devotional service, we're elevated to the topmost platform. Right? We don't have to perform devotional service in any other platform other than pure devotional service. So if we just simply imitate the right example and follow the instructions of the spiritual master, it will immediately transcend. We don't have to worry a single thing. We just simply need to surrender to the instructions of the spiritual master. That's all. Everything else will come in line. Well, Prabhu, we have to gradually progress from karma yoga, to jnana, dhyana yoga, then to bhakti yoga. You don't have to worry a single thing. What is bhakti like? Bhakti is like an elevator. All these processes of devotional service are like ladders or stairs that get you to the topmost platform. And bhakti is that straight process or that transportation that brings you to the topmost level immediately. Right? And Prabhupada, I'll end with this. Prabhupada says early on in this particular chapter in the Rathayatra Leela that Prabhupada explains that the deity of the Lord is not different from the Lord. So when the yogis have to struggle so hard to meditate on Krishna, what do the bhaktas do? That same result of meditating on the Lord in the heart for so long and trying to keep Him there, the bhaktas simply get by coming before Shri Shri Radha Gopinath and taking darshan of them, paying obeisances and chanting. So easy. Krishna consciousness is so easy. But Mahaprabhu asks just simply one thing. Yare dekat kare kaha Krishna upadesh, amara guru ahaya, agyaya hoya tare edesh. That we simply expand this Krishna consciousness movement. And this is all Srila Prabhupada's asking of us. You chant your rounds, you follow the four regulative principles, and you follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Prabhupada says, I'll personally deliver you. In all these letters, he's simply telling his disciples, you follow the four regulative principles, you chant 16 rounds, and you follow my instructions, you will go back home, back to Godhead. What is the thing here? Is to the degree of our surrender, our free will. Why did we enter this material world? Every one of us has come to this material world, has a sense of overlordship. Materialistic persons in their elevated condition can enter any one of the planets within this material world, but all are subjected to dissolution over and over again. So you can understand, the more and more surrendered we are to the spiritual master's order, the more and more surrendered we are to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. To that extent, we'll be Krishna Sukha Hetu. To that extent, we'll understand this, Nivritti Dharma Niratha, religious activities for detachment, Nirata, constantly engaged, Nirmama, without sense of proprietorship, and Nirahankrita, without false egoism. That way we will come to, through of course, Swadharma Aptesut Satvena, by performing our occupational duties under the guidance of the spiritual master, we'll get to Parishuddhena Chetasa, completely purified in consciousness. And that's not all. After that, then we perform more devotional service. But on a different league, something beyond which we are tasting and relishing right now. Okay, so I'll end here. Maybe one question if anyone has, otherwise we can finish the class. Okay, thank you very much. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.